How is one to know oneself? How would somebody know who they are? Is there a guide, a certain manual which would tell us this is who you are? That it would tell us that we are good people, that we are a little impatient, that we are at times angry but generally nice. Is there a code written somewhere which would tell us who we are, and it is through that we will learn about ourselves? Or to know oneself is something continuous, is something that has to occur in every moment, that has to be looked at, seen, read, understood as we go on living the days of our lives. Surely, if I am to know about myself, I would have to see who I am in the way that I am, in the way that I talk to people, in the way that I talk to even myself, the things that I talk, the things that I tell myself, in the language that I use, in the words that I choose to communicate, and why do I choose certain a type of language, a dialect that I do, and why do I behave a certain way. I have to see what my relationships are, what is the quality of my relationships. Do they really have a certain honesty in them? Would they stand the test of few basic questions, or would it shake the integrity of the relationship? Would it shake the relationship altogether? What do I do from the morning till night? What are the things that I like and why do I like them? What are the things that I dislike and then why do I dislike them? Why do I have the friends that I have? Why do I enjoy the things that I enjoy? Why do I read the things that I read? What are the things that entertain me? What are the things in life that I am attracted to? In looking at all of these things, in asking these questions to myself, is how I get to know myself, of who I really am. These questions, these queries will shed light on the facts of my life. And in asking these questions to myself, I come close to my own reality, not a certain idea that I have of myself, but through looking at the life that I live in every day, in every moment, is how I understand myself, is how I know who I really am. Why do I call some things, some acts as moral, and why do I call certain acts immoral? What is really good that I think is good and what is bad? And where do I get my definition of what is really good or bad? Have I even gone into the question of goodness of that which is bad, unhealthy? Have I really discovered, searched for myself and pondered upon these questions? Or through just some floating social ideologies that I see around myself, I create the picture of what is good and what is bad, of what is moral and what is immoral. Why do I desire the things that I desire? Is it really my own desire, or there is an influence acting upon me? Am I even aware of the different influence that shape how I think, that shape who I am? The social influences that are upon me, the bodily influences that act upon me, the influences of my own experience, of my own past, how do they shape who I am in the now? Are the things that occurred in my past is the result of who I am now? Am I the result of my own experiences? And can I even go beyond my experiences, or rather do I have to be a product of my own experiences? Do I dwell into the influences that are conditioning me, that are shaping the way that I live my life? Am I aware of the norm? Do I even question the norm? And what is it that I even call norm? What is it that I even call normal? Because normal just represents the way of the majority, the way of the popular way. What is normal is what is popular. What is popular is normal. Normality is decided by the number of people that do it. The more and more one thing the larger group does is what becomes normal. So, where do I get my definition of what is normal? Do I get my definition of normal from this majority, or have I gone into, or have I even searched and gone into the question of what is normal for me? The desires that I have, how am I sure that they are not the result of the influences and the experiences that act upon me constantly, in every moment? The anger that I show when I am hungry, am I even aware that that anger is not my anger and it is instigated by the lack of food in the body? And can I really see that it is the anger of the body and not my anger, and that I am acting on behalf of the body? Or do I consider myself a body, and then what the body wants, it manifests itself in my behavior, and that is how I react? As I am hungry, when I am hungry, I get angry. When I am sleepy, I get bored. Can I really let the body do what it does, and I do what I want to do, or I am supposed to do? The body will demand for something, the body will ask for things. Is it necessary for me to oblige all those needs and requirements, keeping aside the necessary, the fundamental requirements, the other requirements it makes of from me? Do I really necessarily have to oblige to them? And similarly, the social customs, that the norms that are laid out by the majority, do I have to oblige to them? Because not inquiring into the question of what is normal, I am bound to just follow the norm that is established by the majority, and I would call those norms, that the desires that are the result of those influences, I would call them as something my own. I would call them as my wish. But is it my wish, or my wishes are just the product of the environment, of the experiences that I have had? Am I tied to my environment, to my social surrounding, to my bodily influences that act upon me, or there is a certain agency, something within me independent of all of these influences that can act and observe them and see for what they are, as influences and not something who I really am. Knowing myself would begin with questioning. That questioning could start from the outside of the things that doesn't seem right, and then has to travel inwardly of what are the ways, what are my own personal ways that I think are right. I have to question my own habits. I have to see and inquire into my own likes and dislikes, my own definition of what is good and what is bad, and see what is the criteria, the parameter upon which I base my desires, my actions, my reactions, my responses in life. Because knowingly or unknowingly, we do have a certain inward criteria and inward parameter upon which we live our lives, and we take them as axioms, as something as non-negotiables that are just there, and you ought to live life according to them. Like, one axiom could be that you have to work to get money, and to get money you have to work, and so that is it. You are working for money, and then you go on to live your whole life just like that, and do not even bother to go into the question of what is really work. What do we mean by working? It is obvious that one has to earn their livelihood, but is that it? Are we just supposed to struggle and work hours and hours for livelihood, and there would be nothing beyond that? Have I gone into the question of what gives me my definition of work? Understanding the influences, understanding who I really am in the acts and actions of my life, these questions and these queries would give me the direction of what is work. And having not gone into them, I would be just left at the mercy of the definitions that would come through social influences and by the other popular influences that I exist in. Often we are confused about the behavior of the other. We aren't able to tell whether whether we can trust the person or not, whether are they taking advantage of me, or whether they are deceiving me, and so on. This confusion, this lack of certainty arises from me not knowing myself, because when I know how I deceive myself, how I break my own trust, how I lie usually, how I lie casually, when I see and am aware of all of these things within me, then it is an organic observation through which I perceive the other's tendency to deceive me, to lie to me, or to not be trustworthy. When I have gone into myself, and through that inquiry, through that questioning, I see the other's tendency also, because me and the other, the I and the other are not two different entities. Me and the other person is the same. This is the common, there is this common ground on which all humanity stands on. No matter who you are, where you are born, what gender you are, what skin tone you are, what age you are, there is this common ground on which all of us exist on. And when I inspect and examine and understand the ground that I stand on, I see the ground that the other is standing on, which results in a clarity of the mind, which makes me sensitive towards life, which makes me sensitive to my environment, which makes me really come in contact, to come close to the people, to the things around me. Knowing myself is knowing the entire environment, the entire world around me. I see my own pitfalls, I see my own tendencies, I see my own compulsions, I am aware about my own miseries and sorrows. I am absolutely aware of how fear comes into existence. I have seen that being one singular entity gives rise to the fear, and this dualistic nature of fear, that there is this one entity and there is the whole other world against it, gives rise to a certain cowardice, a certain insecurity within. When I understand my own shortcomings, I understand the shortcomings of the other also. It is then I relate to the other. It is then I have established a relationship with the other. Otherwise, one is operating in their own circle of influence and the other is operating in their circle of influence, and from these circles of influences we form our relationships, and these circles of relationship and the circle of influences is what are in relationship to each other, not the person, the singular, not one person with the other. The circle of influences is what are the two things that are in companionship, that are in relationship with each other, and these two circle of influences would now cooperate and not be cooperated and not be cooperative with each other, and so on. Without understanding, without knowing the ground on which I stand on, all I have is mere hunches and guesses and a picture of confusion about the other. And most of the time we are certain about these pictures of chaos that we have about the other. To know the ground beneath me is to be sensitive, and that sensitivity is not sentimentality, it is not sympathizing, it is not sensitive about its own self, it is not the sensitivity of the ego, which cannot even take a joke or a dig upon itself, or which is insecure in itself, so it says that I am sensitive and please don't talk to me in a certain way, or don't say certain things around me, and so on. This is not sensitivity. Sensitivity is not the sensitivity of the ego. The sensitivity is perceiving the thing in its entirety. It is the quality that makes you human. It is to know under the influences that you act upon, and so you know the unoriginality, the shallowness of your own actions. To be sensitive is to not be narrow, is to not be limited to your own finite circle, to your own finite limited boundaries that you have about yourself. To be sensitive is to transcend these boundaries, is to destroy this narrowness. To be sensitive is to be spacious within. To be truly sensitive is to come out of that hole that we have dug for ourselves, that all of us have within, that emptiness that all of us carry. To be sensitive is to rid yourself of that emptiness, that void that is the result of the narrowness of the I, the narrowness of the me, the self-centric tendencies that are within us. To be sensitive is to see that this self-centric life that we have built for ourselves is a prison that we are living in and we are living from. We could be comfortable in that prison. We could think that, this prison is who I am, this prison is me, and how can I let go of it. To be sensitive is to see the restrictions, is to see the foundations of the prison that we live out of and live in. Physically, we could be in vast, spread out spaces, but inwardly, we would be small, confined, narrow. And to be really sensitive is to have an immeasurable space within. And looking at the life that I live on the daily basis, my lies, my pettiness, my clever thinking, my schemes that I run, my own idea about what is my future going to look like, etc., etc. To question these things, to know whether they do have any substantial reality to them, or they are just a result of the influences, social, bodily, and my own, that act upon me. This unending inquiry within of how we live and why I live the way I live gives rise to a mind that is truly sensitive, to a mind that can see things as it is and not how it would like them to see. A moment to moment inquiry into our own actions and habits is how I know myself. If life is continuous, so the understanding of life has to be continuous also, like a never ending journey. And this never ending journey, this quest alone takes us close to the richness of life, to the abundance of life. There is no direct route to richness, to freedom, to sensitivity, to joy. It is when we know ourselves, it is when we understand who we are, that all of these things comes as a byproduct of it, as a fruit that you didn't ask for, that it is just there. It is almost like a cleaning exercise, like you were there to clear out the filth, to brush off the dust, and in doing so you found what was clean. You came upon, in some sense, what was sacred. And knowing oneself is, without a doubt, a laborious thing to take on. But then we have to see, we have to ask, are we down to doing the labor that others have inflicted upon us, or we choose, or we see or find for ourselves what is the labor that is really worth doing, not for some fruit, not that we are going to get a goodie at the end of it, but what is really meaningful, but something that has, that is real, that has some sense of actuality to it, and not which is, and not something which is a result of a coincidence, a chance, or a popularized or a popular notion. Because what we have is this one life, and it is upon us. In some sense, it is a duty for us. It is our duty to find out the labor that is worth doing. Or else we would be stuck doing someone else's labor.